alcohol is not a disease. Let's get that right. That used to drive me nuts. I have a disease. What better way to be a victim? My God, I'm going to stay in my victimhood because I've got a disease like cancer. It's called alcoholism. Fucking hell. It's not a disease. I worked in a rehab for 6.5 years in Bali, but it wasn't a 12-step rehab. And I'll be honest with this, being a professional therapist, like AOD therapist, there was some clients I would say AA is not for you.
Hello, welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten, and I am so excited you are here today for another Leaving AA conversation. And today we have a very special guest. This is my friend Mark, who I met in Alcoholics Anonymous.
2013 was when I first went into the rooms, and I was in AA for about 4 years. And yeah, I left after about 4 years of being in AA. So about, what's that? Yeah, 2018, 2019.
I met you at an AA convention. It was Founders Day is June 10th for AA, right? And so I remember Founders Day every year in Bali, they have the annual convention or AA roundup. And I was leaving, and I was walking through the lobby, and you were sitting in the lobby of the hotel. You had already got sober in Australia, and then shortly after that, you moved to Bali.
I went to the convention because I remember when I first got to AA, and then the first year I was in AA, people went to the convention, and I had a resentment over these people coming back, talking about how amazing this thing was. So I was like, oh, I've got to go to this convention the next year. I remember we met in the lobby and I was talking about moving to Ubud, and you were living there, and you really inspired me to actually go there. And I think I went there for 2 months and then come back to Australia and moved back to Bali like about a year later.
And you lived right next door to me at first, didn't you? So you did Melbourne AA, and then you did AA in Bali, in Ubud, Bali. I would like to start this with you leaving AA and what that process was like. For me, it was like a moment where I realized it was all like a mythology and not true. And then I just was like, oh, it's like the veil lifted and I was done.
When I first was in AA, for me, it wasn't about all the steps and all that sort of thing. It was about the community. I wasn't the greatest AA student, but I did love to chat. I did love sharing, and well, definitely my ego loved it. But I did a lot of work on myself outside of the room. So I had a lady who, let's call her a spiritual healer, who was like a lady I did a lot of work on myself with. And probably 3 years in, I started feeling uncomfortable. I started getting bored of what I was hearing. And then I started realizing that, most people say, oh, the good thing about meetings is I go to a meeting and then when I leave, I feel better. I started feeling worse when I left meetings. I felt, and it was a gradual thing over time. I started leaving meetings feeling more bitter and more like, oh God, I can't. It didn't sit right with me, some of the stuff I was hearing, and hearing the same stuff. Hearing people walk in and talk about they're 20 years sober and talk about how when they used to drink 20 years ago. And I was like, surely you can move on by now and stop living in the past. I started like almost rebelling in a way. Like I stopped saying I was an alcoholic. I started introducing myself, I'm a grateful member. And then I just introduced myself as I'm a member. And then there was a lot of things around people saying you have to, the people that have got more years than you are kind of better than you in a way. And I started like, hang on, I've done more work on myself. And these are the people that I'm meant to look up to. And I just didn't sit right. I remember even the first couple of weeks, and I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, that the first couple of weeks I was in AA, I hear people say, oh, you got to get a sponsor. You have to do the steps. You have to get a sponsor, do the steps with your sponsor, but find someone that you relate to that has what you want. And I remember even my third week in, I remember thinking, there's no one in these rooms that has what I want at all. I don't want to be like any of these people. I just want to be me. I had one sponsor the whole time I was in the rooms, and that lasted maybe 4 months. And then it started getting to a stage I started arguing with people about the principles. I would say to people, like, they would put their opinions forward, and I'd say, you're putting personalities before principles instead of what the rooms teach. And I remember one guy got years, I've got 14. You don't know what you're talking about. I remember saying to him, you're an arrogant fuck, and I knew I was done then. I couldn't do it anymore. It just didn't sit right for me. I don't think it ever actually did. I was never in it 100%. I was always on the outskirts. I loved the community aspect of it. I loved having somewhere to go on a Saturday night without going out with drinking mates. But all the control, it never really sat right with me.
I remember you being rebellious. I remember you saying, because it's so small. And so your experience of like the second half of your AA life, right, the 2 years in Bali is so unique because in Ubud, it's so small in Ubud. Like there's maybe 20, maybe 30 people in the entire fellowship, and then 10 of them go to the meeting, or 8 or 5. So it's so small, and then the visitors come through, but it really is the same people with the same shares every time. And I remember you saying, I'm a grateful member. And I remember thinking, ooh, rebel. Because that's like hearsay when like you don't follow the code, you know? And yeah, that little tree house, we'd all have the coconuts. And I only was there, I think, 1 year with you, and then I moved down to the beach.
It got to the stage where I'm just hearing the same people. It even got to the stage where, like, this person's going to go first, this person will go second, this person will go third. I knew which person was going to share when. And it also, a friend of mine who was in the room too, we'd have a competition and write down the names of who would go first, and then we would compare who was the closest at the end of the meeting. Just because I was so bored, people would say to me, like, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to say you're an alcoholic, you have to introduce yourself. And I was like, no, I don't. There's only one requirement. I don't have to have a sponsor. I don't have to do this. Control, the biggest thing I got was, I think I was about probably my 4th meeting. I met a friend of mine who's still a friend of mine today. And he said to me, Mark, I'll just give you a heads up. You'll hear some amazing stuff in these rooms, but it is not a full bed of mental health. There's a lot of fucked up people in these rooms. So just be wary of that. And I started watching that too. I started watching, people would share how calm they are and how accepting of others they are and how loving they are. And then you'd go out for a meal with them afterwards and they're like complaining to the waiter or waitress about how much salt's on their chips, or complaining about the color of the napkins or whatever. It's just like, you'd hear one thing in the rooms and I just remember always just thinking, I don't want to be like this at all. I don't actually like this. There's something that doesn't sit right with me. And I think it was always in me. There was something that never really sat right with me. The biggest thing I got out of AA was I ended up, it fed an ego for me because I got really good at sharing. So in Australia, you don't put your hand up and ask to share. The chairperson points. And it's quite an honour to be, in some way, to be asked a lot. And it got to the stage I used to get asked a lot to share because the stuff that come out of my mouth come out as sort of very knowledgeable or wisdom-like. And people loved hearing what I had to say, but it fed an ego for me and it's why I stayed. It's why I kept going, because I just kept, to be honest, there was a part, because, with addicts, the self-worth thing is very low. So when I went into AA and I got asked to share a lot because I did so much work on myself outside the rooms, it fed an ego for me that I never felt I was good at anything, and I started realize I was good at that. So it fed an ego for me, and it's the reason why I stayed so long. It just fed an ego that created something that was, yeah, that I felt I was finally good at something.
I know the closer you can like parrot the dogma, that's the gold stars, right? If you're by the book or if you spit out the ideology,
Yes,
basically.
I was good at something. It fed an ego. Oh, here comes spiritual Mark. He's really spiritual. He's really got it. I wasn't like that because of AA. I was like that because I did the work on myself that kind of AA taught me to avoid doing in some way.
I know that at some point in your AA life, you were not really going to meetings, except that you worked at the rehab in Bali where there was a meeting. So you were going to that meeting, right?
I stopped going to meetings and I actually asked my boss, is that okay? And one thing I was lucky enough, I worked in a rehab for 6.5 years in Bali, but it wasn't a 12-step rehab. So I asked my boss if it's okay if I stop going to meetings because it was really important to me to keep doing the work on myself. And I just wanted to go deeper and deeper instead of just doing the mundane, oh, I'll just do a fourth step again and blah, blah, blah. We used to have a meeting every Wednesday, and what I'd do is I'd get a chair and I had to sit in those because it was part of my job. And I totally understood that. So I sit there and I would actually literally sit on the outskirt. I'd get a chair and sit in the sun. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I would just watch the trees. I wouldn't even listen to anyone. I would just sit there and watch the trees because I was so bored of it. I couldn't hear it anymore. I didn't want to listen to people talk about when I drank 25 years ago. It's like, really? I wanted to hear about your life now. Like, what are you doing to move forward? Or how are you taking responsibility for your life now? Instead of talking about what you did 20 years ago. It was like being stuck in a broken record, just over and over. And I wanted to move forward instead of staying stuck. I would attend those meetings, but I only share if there was like 10 minutes to go and everyone had had a go. And there was like an uncomfortable silence, and then I'd put my input in. But I never enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll be honest, the only thing I enjoyed about it is it got me an hour out of work and I got to sit in the sun and got paid for it, basically.
When I worked at a rehab in Bali, that was 2016. So we met at the convention in 2015, so 10 years ago, the AA convention. 2016, that summer, I worked at a rehab in Bali, and we didn't have AA meetings at the rehab. We would go in the van, they called it the druggy buggy, and we'd drive down to Seminyak where they had meetings. I'm wondering, when you were working at the rehab as a counselor and you've already left AA, even though you're participating at the work level of being an AA, right? How was that?
And I'll be honest with this, being a professional therapist, like AOD therapist, there was some clients I would say AA is not for you, and there's other clients I would say, look, I think AA might be suitable for you. For me, it was a person-to-person thing. It wasn't like AA is the only way or it's not the only way. Coming from a professional background, there were some people who I thought actually kind of needed it, that it would actually help them to stop drinking or stop drugging. And then there was other people I was like, oh no, you're not. We need to find something else for you. Because I think the biggest thing that AA was for me was community. For me, it's about finding a community. It's just not finding a fucked up one. Yeah, so I was never against it. I was never for it. I just, for a person to person basis, it was something I'd do, yeah. It was something I would work with people with, depending on what they needed.
That sounds like exactly how it should be, individualized, because we're all different. When you left AA, I remember when you told me I just remember coming up to you, trying to kind of rope you back in. It's so disgusting now when I think about it. But I was talking to you. I don't remember what I said, but I remember it was like I felt this need, which is the indoctrination, AA indoctrination that was in me at that time. That was what, like 7 or 8 years ago, where I felt like I needed to try to get you back in the middle of the boat. And I was saying things that I think were kind of like, are you sure you want to leave? Like, like trying to like an energy of trying to pull you back into the program or something. And so I've already apologized for that. I know that's disgusting. That's the control. So what did that feel like for you? Or what did it feel like in general when people were not initially just accepting you to make your decision, whether it was me or anybody else?
I remember that evening, I felt you were a bit distant from me. You actually were a bit, because I get it. People say, do AA or die. Like, you're going to die if you leave. Or, I mean, I get in some way that's their process or their thoughts. And I always remember, I knew you were coming from a loving place because you were caring, you're worried that I may drink again or whatever. So it didn't really affect me coming from you. And other people, actually, it doesn't really worry me because, and I do use their language, like when people say, why did you leave AA? I used to get that a lot. Well, I've been away from AA more years than I've actually been in AA now. So I used to get it a lot, and people would say, why did you leave? And I'd literally say to them, so they would leave me alone, I would say, to be honest, for me, the only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. I don't have the desire to drink anymore or to stop drinking, so I don't feel I qualify. And that would usually shut them up. And I'd just leave it at that basic answer that I'd respond, and they wouldn't bother me after that. Yeah, people would leave me alone.
When we're really in the ideology, we really think that if someone leaves, it's dangerous. If they're out of the program and they're a real alcoholic, it's dangerous. They're going to die, jails, institutions, death. So it's scary. The terror, the phobias that have been indoctrinated into us are real. I was certainly afraid to leave, and I was afraid if people left. I was afraid that you, my friend, was going to, get in harm's way. I was scared at first. But then I don't know. You were kind of always rebellious, so I was just like, whatever, and then moved on, and then we kept being friends. We were fine after that. You know what? That actually planted a seed in me that, like, wait, hey, Mark left and he's fine. That wasn't like what popped me out of the ideology, but I did have a friend who left and was fine. What was it like after leaving AA? Did you drink again?
I never had a desire to drink. It does not interest me to have a drink. So I still haven't had a drink. It's what I think I'm coming up to 12 years now without a drink. A few years ago during COVID, I did decide during lockdown, I was living with a friend of mine who was growing marijuana, and I decided I was going to have a joint because I didn't want it to go the other way. I didn't want it to drugs and alcohol to have, because I felt it always had a control over me, but then I felt if I work on just of not doing it and avoiding it, it's still got a control over me. So I wanted to have a go at having a joint and just see what happened. It's because I didn't want it to have an impact that, it's like people talk about in the rooms. I can't walk past a bottle shop. It's like, really? You're 20 years sober and you still can't. It's not the alcohol that's the problem. It's just an object. It's why we drink it. To me, AA doesn't deal with the why. I drank to avoid how I was feeling. But then when I was in AA, I was still avoiding everything else. Because all that mattered was being in AA. So I didn't want to live my life avoiding life anymore. Avoiding who I was, life. I didn't want to be one of these people that couldn't walk past, couldn't sit with my friends when they're drinking beer. Like, I didn't want to be that person. I go camping with my friends and I'll take non-alcoholic beer and I'll have a beer with them. And I really enjoy that. And the funny thing is, the non-alcoholic beer that I drink is probably the best tasting beer I've ever drank in my life. I actually enjoy the taste of it. I fucking hated beer. But I love having a beer with my friends, and I just don't, it's not the alcohol. You get told how to think, which is really dangerous. You get told you can't trust yourself. Well, I don't want to live my life where I don't trust my thoughts. I want to actually trust who I am. Because what does that turn into? I don't drive a car because I don't trust that I might not have an accident or I might have an accident. I mean, it's really, how do you want to live your life? And I'm not going to bag people that are in it. I'm not going to, I can understand why they do it. I can understand why I still have friends that are in it and still hang out with people that are in AA. They get something out of it. Their life's better because of it. Good luck to them. But I didn't want that for me. I didn't want that. I lived my life avoiding, I didn't want to avoid anymore. And I felt I still was when I was in AA. I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse.
When you left AA, did you need to do any specific work, therapy, reflections to get AA out of your head? I know I'm still doing deconstructing work, like even recently, but I did a lot of it the first year because I was afraid I was going to die. Like I had a lot of AA in my head that was very limiting to me. And I'm noticing I still have AA in my head that I'm trying to get out. And I realized I was in probably a lot deeper than you. Was there any moments where you realized that AA was still controlling you in your own mind?
When I left, it was like, I'm done. The only thing I worried about was I knew I would lose friendships because of it. But then I just tell myself, well, were they really friends if they're going to judge me on that? And I get why. That was the only concern I have. But when I left, it was just, honestly, it felt like freedom. And I remember the conversation we had about it. And I remember mentioning to you, I just feel free now. I actually feel free. And I remember a year after I left, you started ringing me up and questioning, how did you feel about this? What did you do? What did you like? Yeah, all these questions about, which was a shock for me because you were definitely in. I mean, I remember you had sponsors everywhere. The 4 years I was in AA, I never had a sponsee. I never had a sponsee. I think I got up to step 6. I never completed them. For me, I just saw, okay, step 10, I just have to do that every day. That's it. I don't have to do the rest of the shit. To me, it was like, I just have to be in the moment and be a better version of what I used to be. That's all I have to do. That's how I have to live my life. And, so when I left, there was no regret. There was no indoctrinate that kept me. If anything, I still question whether I can have a drink or not. But the real fact is I actually don't want to. But there is still a question of like, the sort of teachings in AA that I might have one drink and then my life might turn into shit. So I suppose that would be the only thing I'd have there. And that would be an AA doctorate or an AA. Yeah, but that would be the only one I'd say. And losing friends, that was the only thing. There's a couple that I have which I adore and I'm still close friends with them today. I don't think I'm friends with anyone in the rooms from AA in Ubud anymore.
The only AA Ubud that I'm in contact with, that now that you say that, it might be this
you
friendship right here. There was one AA in Ubud that I really, really liked a lot. I'm not sure if he was your vibe, but he passed away during the pandemic.
I was never a fan. He annoyed the hell out of me. Yeah. This is an example for me of how people are in the rooms. I was at the 2018 convention. My ex-girlfriend had flown in from the UK to come do the convention. That's one thing I don't recommend. Don't ever go out with someone in the rooms. My God. Well, it's someone who doesn't work on themselves and just does AA. I remember I was really struggling at that convention. And I was outside by myself. And the guy who I think we're both talking about come up to me. He went to the toilet, come out, and he said to me, he was like, it's all about helping other in service. And he come up to me, he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm really struggling. I really need someone to talk to. And he turned around and said to me, oh, well, I got to go back in there because I really want to hear what has to be said. And I'll never forget that actually. And I just remember, I can feel the sadness of that, thinking, standing out there alone going, these are the people that say about you have to do service and look after each other and all these sort of things, but no, you're doing it. For me, the funny thing is, like, I can't believe it's taught. I cannot believe this. When you're stuck in your own head, go make a phone call and go help someone else. I mean, what the fuck is that? Really? I mean, to teach people to go reach out for help, because it's the hardest thing one of the hardest things people find to do is reach out for help when they need it. Instead, it's like, ignore your feelings, go out and help someone else. How the hell are you going to be in a state of mind to support someone when you can't even wipe your own ass at that time? It's really, I think it's so dangerous, that doctrine. I think it's so dangerous. I can't believe that is taught. That sort of mentality. I don't know how that is a thing, to be honest. I just don't understand that at all. So things like that used to get me out. Yeah, that really hurt me when he said that, to be honest, because he was someone I really trusted until then. I was just like, oh, wow.
The betrayals are hard to navigate, especially in a small fellowship where it feels like people don't care.
Real eye-opener for me to have that happen. Like, he probably wouldn't be someone I would go to, but the fact that he just ignored someone that was in pain because he wanted to go hear the guest speaker, I was just like, I've never been around a group of people so much that say one thing and do the complete opposite. Ever. Not to the extreme of what a lot of people in AA do. Yeah. I've never been around people like that.
It's a cult thing is what's coming to my head now, because there's the cult personality, right? There's our AA persona that we wear after we're indoctrinated, of parroting the ideology. We need to practice these principles and be a good AA and all that, but it's not who we really are. It's a religious conversion, basically. It's not who we really are, but we're told to be this way to be accepted, and we have to be accepted by this tribe, otherwise we're going to die.
Yeah, I don't know how many meetings I've been in where someone drunk rocks in, turns up, and they're outed. I mean, the requirement is a desire to stop drinking. Doesn't mean you have stopped. You want to stop. But they look down on these people. How many times I've been at, I still remember the Seminyak meeting was huge for this. People sitting, it's all about the newcomer. Let's look after the newcomer. And they have people put their hand up, who's the newcomer, and then the meeting's finished. And I'd go outside, and the newcomers are all standing by themselves outside. And all the people are talking about where they're going to go for coffee or what they're doing with their day. And the newcomers, and they 5 minutes before that, they're talking about, it's about the newcomer. It really hurt me actually watching that over and over. Ubud was the same. The meetings in Melbourne are the same. I always felt in Melbourne, there was a meeting I used to go to that has over 150 people go. And I used to feel I was about the only person who would go up to the newcomers all the time, or go up to the people that come up from the rehabs and go talk to them. Everyone else was just in their own little bubbles, like talking shit with each other and trying to fit in. I just couldn't believe it when I'd see that. Especially what you heard 10 minutes before that. Yeah, I've never been in a group of people that say and do the complete opposite things. And that's not everyone, because there is some people, one person comes to mind who's really good at that. who's still a friend of mine today, but we just don't talk AA anymore. We talk footy and football.
That's awesome. So you are a addiction counselor or addiction
Yeah.
therapist. You've worked in the rehab in Bali for, was it 6.5 years? I'm wondering if there's anything that you could speak to about if somebody, for example, is still in earlier sobriety, maybe they're a couple months in or a year or two in, and they don't quite want to leave recovery yet, or they don't quite feel totally stable in their sobriety, but they realize AA is a cult religion and it's harmful and they want not be a part of it. So what kinds of things would you suggest for them to do?
Definitely find a community. Find some sort of community. I think the reason that people do AA is the community aspect. We are communal beings. We need community. So I'd say for anything, if AA is not your community, find a different community, whatever that would be. I would definitely say you need to find some sort of therapist to work on the why. I don't think this is touched on enough. We don't look at the why. You need to reach out and find someone that supports you, whether it's a therapist or whatever, to find out why. What is it? Why do you drink? Because alcohol is not a disease. Let's get that right. That used to drive me nuts. I have a disease. What better way to be a victim? My God, I'm going to stay in my victimhood because I've got a disease like cancer. It's called alcoholism. Fucking hell. It's not a disease. It's a coping mechanism. So you need to learn why you use a coping mechanism. What is going on for you that you feel uncomfortable within yourself, that putting a substance in your body makes you feel more comfortable, makes you feel more yourself. You need to learn to be more yourself without it. So you need to look at the why. To me, it's so important. Look at why, and it will change your life forever. That's the biggest thing. Community, and get someone to support you in looking at why you need to alcohol or drugs to cope with life. It's just a tool, and most people just use it as a way to fit in or to cope with what they don't know how to cope with.
Are there patterns that you've recognized on people's whys?
Oh, there's something about guilt and shame about who they are, and they think that the person they are when they drink is the person they want to be. There's something about control as well. There's a link, a very big thing. Most people are controlling. They want to, and alcohol or drugs gives them a feeling of what it feels like to not be in control, to let go. So there's something about that as well. That's a very common. They're the most common things I find. I would say that's the hardest thing. Finding a therapist you trust is the hardest thing. I remember I went to 3 different therapists before I found the one I trusted. And group therapy is amazing. There's something about in groups. Like group therapy is so powerful because there's something about groups that you alleviate the shame and guilt when you express that in a group. And there's something about when you realize too that you're not the only one that's done that. It's huge. There's something about alleviation of shame and guilt in group therapy that's just, you'll never get on a one-on-one therapy. I just think honestly, it's finding what works for you is the best way. Maybe go to a therapist. If that therapist doesn't work, don't judge all therapists on that, because there's a lot of terrible therapists out there. There's a lot of good ones as well. Definitely finding a community. It could be a men's group or a women's group or whatever, or, a tennis group. Finding some sort of community, because there's only one thing that comes up when you drink on drug. There's usually, it goes to the categories, let's call it, or the stages of isolation, and there's only one thing that usually comes after isolation. So community is huge. to find a community somewhere where you feel you fit in. And there's something about allowing yourself to be yourself. And I'll say that again so it's clear. Allowing yourself to be yourself, not what you think you should be. Yeah, it's really important. And that will help you find the right therapist. It will help you find whatever way helps you. I mean, there's books you could read. There's like, I'm hoping to get a book out in the next few years around it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And when you're working with someone and you see the moment that clicks for them, that's going to change their life for the better forever. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of anything that gives you that feeling when you support someone in seeing something in themselves that you know it's going to change their life for the better forever. That's the best thing about being a therapist.
Is there any advice you would have to somebody who's in that fear space of either one foot in, one foot out, or just left and is like, am I going to die?
Your intuition is always right. It's that first thought. Most people doubt themselves a lot. So I would say, I tell my clients the one thing, when you want to start trusting yourself, start working on not listening to the word but or anything that comes after the word but. Because they're all the questions. So even something as simple, I want to have lunch here today, but just try and work on not listening to the but, because it's everything else that comes in. Trust your true self. Learn to trust your true self, because that's who you are. Ask a lot of questions. Definitely don't be scared because of what other people tell you. Just tell yourself what you need to hear. It's such a bad thing when you get told that you can't even trust your own decisions. I mean, really? How do you make a decision on what you're going to eat? You start questioning that. Just trust yourself. Just trust that whatever feels right for you is probably the right thing for you. Ask questions. Yeah. Find a community that's going to support you in what you want to do. Hugely. Like, I love that you're doing this. I mean, we've talked about this for a while, that you wanted to step into something along these lines, and the courage you have to step into this, because I know there was going to be people that are going to try and beat you down, but the courage you have to step into this, that's listening to your true self. It's amazing. Yeah, be that.
I've told you for years that I need to talk about leaving AA. For years I've told you I need to talk about it, and I was scared, but something in me just kept getting louder and louder and louder.
I'm so proud of you that you've always been someone who steps into what they need. You have an idea and you go bang. I'm not saying that AA is not for everyone. It helped me in my first 2 years. And I'll say in some ways, but it never felt, to get told it's the only way, to get told that, if you leave, you're going to die, or you're going to drink again. I mean, we're living proof that that's bullshit. Living proof that's bullshit. Yeah.
I'm so glad I met you at the AA convention 10 years ago. And 10 years later, here we are. I have a handful of friends that I'm still, people who have left AA, like around when I did. You were the front runner, the trendsetter, early adopter. And then I left, and a couple of my friends left after me. And so I still have some friends some Bali friends that have left AA that are still really close friends in my life. But most of my AA friends are still in AA, and they're not friends anymore. They're, walls up. Well, I guess they're more acquaintances when you really think about it. Any final thoughts about leaving AA, or what you might have wanted to hurt yourself when you were in the transitioning out?
I think it was just the timing for me was right. I was maybe I should have left earlier than when I did. Look, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
I'll never tell every person that they shouldn't do it because some people just may need it, even if it's for the first year. I always felt it wasn't something I was going to do for the rest of my life from day one. I think deep down I always knew that. It was always something that was just I was dipping my toes into to support me to stop drinking. But I look back, it wasn't AA that helped me to stop drinking. It was working on my shit, let's call it, of why I drank in the first place. That helped me from not to stop drinking. Because the reality was I had the moment where I decided to stop drinking the day before I went to my first meeting. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Right. Yeah, it's a moment. I love your story. So your story is so different from mine as far as I had a moment after a couple cracks in my brainwashing where I was like, "Oh my god, AA is complete shit. I'm out." And it was like, "Peace out. I'm gone." But for you, it sounds like, and I've heard other people talk about this as well, where the deprogramming happened while you were still in AA. I was still saying I'm Kirsten, I'm an alcoholic up to my last meeting, but you were already letting go of that, like not maybe you were doing less fellowship, you weren't identifying as an alcoholic in the meeting. So I love that some people do the deconstruction stuff when they're still in there and are critically thinking in there, like, what is this? What is that? Nobody here has what I want. I related to that too. I think especially on Bali, that's how I felt. There's nobody here to sponsor me. I didn't have a sponsor the past several years because I was like, nobody has what I want. Literally, like 95% of the island is like people in the first 2 years of sobriety. So I was 10 years sober. I'm like, I'm not going to have a newcomer sponsor me. So how much before you left, like when did you start deprogramming in AA?
A year and a half before I left, I stopped saying I was an alcoholic. I started thinking
Wow.
words are really powerful. And when I say a statement like I am an alcoholic, it's almost like that's all I am. And I didn't want to be that. I reckon I was a year and a half in before I left. And I started saying I'm a grateful member. I don't know how many people would say after the meeting come up to me and go, you can't say that. I was like, yeah, this is my new favorite thing I say. I can say that. You just can't hear it. I'm not taking responsibility for what you can't hear. So I can say that. You can't hear it. I knew you'd love that. My new favorite saying. So it's isn't it? And it's spot on. It's actually spot on. I can
It's so
say that.
good.
No, you can't hear it. And that's okay. That's fine. Yeah. When people say you can't say it, I was like, I used to just back it up. I actually can. Because there's only one requirement. Then I reckon I did that for about a year, saying I'm a grateful member. And then I'd start saying, because I stopped being grateful of being a grateful member, I just started saying I'm a member, and that was it. For the last 3 months, I would just say, hi, I'm Mark. Yeah. And the last 3 months was just, the only meeting I went to was the one that was at my work, and that's how I would identify. I would just say my name. It was a gradual process, but I think I knew a year and a half in that I was kind of done. It really comes back to the childhood trauma of how we've learned to be in the world. The way I work is what I call learnt behaviour. I think everything's a learnt behaviour. We learn how to be in the world from our parents, from our surroundings, and from our traumas. So when you understand that it's a learnt behaviour, anything learnt can be unlearned and you can learn a different way. Understanding this is really powerful. Trauma doesn't come from what happened to you. It comes from how you dealt with what happened to you. So if you learn to deal with it in a different way, you can get your power back. You can step into who you truly are. I don't think people understand that a lot, to be honest. That's how I work with people, is about, yeah, about looking at it differently.
If you could leave us as we wrap up with like a takeaway or something, like is there a journaling prompt that you give clients? Is there a self-discovery something? I know when a lot of us leave AA, we're like, who the fuck am I? Because we have that identity crisis. I know I did.
Work on not worrying so much about what other people think of you. It'd be one of the biggest things. The biggest thing we have is we worry about what other people think.
Is there a concrete way to do that?
Yeah, I ask my clients all the time. So, and I'll ask whoever views this to ask yourself this. Would you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself? The answer is always no. The answer is always no. You would never talk to your close friend the way you talk to yourself. That's what you need to work on changing. The way you talk to yourself. And it can be something as simple as dropping your pen and calling yourself an idiot. Don't do that. You're not an idiot, you just dropped your pen. Because it's really a form of abuse. So that would be a thing to start working on. We are literally married to ourselves till death do us part. There's no child separation, there's no divorce. We are literally death do us part. So that's the relationship you need to work on the most, is the one with yourself. And that's not selfish, that's just really self-care. Because if we talk to ourselves in a nasty way, that is a form of abuse. If we're always putting ourselves down, that is abuse. You wouldn't do that to your partner. So why would we do it to ourselves? So that's a thing we need to work on, is the way we talk to ourselves and change the way we speak to ourselves and not worry about not worry so much about what other people think of us.
It's such a great place to start. I love that so much. I'll put all of your information below. Cool. It's been fun to be on this journey alongside you. And yeah, and thanks for letting me know that it's possible to leave AA. You're the only one that I know that left AA before me, that I'm friends with, that I knew was still sober and was still sane and was still was thriving. So you were that example for me.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us here today and your story and your leaving AA adventure. I can't wait to hear from everybody in the comments. What did you think? What came up for you? What did you vibe with? Any freedom pop up in your mind as you listen to this? And as always, I will definitely look forward to seeing you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.